It's frozen, Mike.
Alrighty, so it's shortly after 7 o'clock on Tuesday, September 7th, and I'll call the meeting to order. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof?
Yes, Mayor Curtis, I have one under item 5, I believe, the Crothers McFarland Municipal Drain.
Yep. Okay. Is there any others? Not seeing any. I will note for those watching live on YouTube that Councillor Clark is present and here with us. Her video is just off, so when she's speaking, her name will be across the top of the screen, I believe. So we have the minutes of the previous meeting, which were held on August 9th. Have a mover and seconder for those? Okay, Councillor McKinnon.
I'll move that.
Councillor Clark. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and that's carried. And we have a couple items for timed events and a quarter revision. So next up we have our quarter revision, and then followed by drainage consideration meeting, and then we'll flow into the rest of our council meeting. So the first one there, we need to have a motion that council adjourn its regular meeting in order to sit as the quarter revision under section 97 of the Drainage Act as amended to consider the Crothers McFarland Drain 2021. Mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor McKinnon, second by Councillor Brody. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that's carried. And just like we did the last meeting, we're gonna have to have another motion from council because with Councillor McKinnon, you declared a conflict of interest and you will not be participating. Is that correct?
I believe that I'm exempt under the Conflict of Interest Act. So if you'd like me to act on the quarter revision, I can. My understanding from the Integrity Commission was I could. But if you have enough to do it without me, it may be better since I did declare conflict.
Okay, so if you do not participate, then we'll have 4 members of council. So then we'll have to have a motion to bring us down to 3. I believe that's correct, Mike Barnier, our clerk, because we have to have an odd number. So you just let me know, are you participating or not? And if you aren't, then we'll have a motion with council.
I shall participate.
You'll participate. Okie dokie. So we don't need to have a motion. I will be the chair. Or do we don't need to have a motion for that? Do we, Mike? Perfect. Okay, so we have the Crothers McFarland Drain. And this quarter revision is pursuant to a report prepared by Spriest Associates dated June 4th, 2021. And it was considered and adopted at the consideration meeting held on July 19th of this year. And the first 2 readings were given then. And then on August 9th, we had the Court of Revision, and we deferred that due to Schedule D, and now we have that information there. So we'll move into that. So I'll call the meeting to order. And we have the reassessment request from Wade and Shelley Ingold, and we have the new information there. So I'll hand it over to Armin, which is sitting in for Mike DeVos. If you have anything you'd like to add there from the report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Good evening. Basically, the letter, I think, stands, or the report letter stands on its own. Mike thoroughly reviewed the assessment and decided the assessment for construction was fair as it constructed, but he did feel, and we did feel after reviewing it, that for future maintenance, because of no work being done in that downstream portion and there being assessments, that those assessments basically be construction assessments be eliminated and a maintenance schedule be provided to take account of that, so that in future, when work is done on the parts that are being constructed now, that assessment is fair. And then the other properties would not, that are paying now because of the administration costs involved with the work that was looked at that isn't being done. Basically, they won't be accessible in any future maintenance downstream of the drain.
Okay, thank you, Armin. Is there any questions at all from the court? Do you have any questions, Councillor McKinnon, as Betty Ann as a landowner?
No, basically what Armin's described is fair because I was only on the schedule of assessment because we were looking at potential work downstream. And so with our farm coming off and a change to the Ingold property, I think it's fair.
Okay. Mike, I see that you've joined us here, Mike DeVos. I think Armin probably covered it well. Do you have anything you'd like to add at all? No. Alrighty. So we have the recommendation, and that is that the assessment for construction contained in the report for the Crothers McFarland Drain 2021 as prepared by Sprates Associates dated June 4th, 2021 be confirmed as presented, and further that the assessment for future may be accepted as stated in the Sprates Associates submission dated August 5th, 2021 as a supplement to the schedule of assessment. Do you have a mover and seconder for that? Okay, Councillor Brody and Deputy.
I'll move it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And that's carried. And if there's nothing else for this one, we need to have a motion to adjourn the court at 7:10 p.m. Okay, Councillor McKinnon and Deputy Mayor Hendricks, all those in favor? And that's carried.
Aye.
Okay, so we'll move into the drainage consideration meeting, and this is for the Peters Drain 2021. Armin, are you going to stick around, or is Mike going to take over?
I think Mike is going to take over unless he says different. We're in different parts of the office right now.
Okay, thank you, Armin. It's good to see you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Good evening.
All righty, so we need to have a motion now that the drainage consideration meeting for the engineer's report for, that should say the Peters Drain 2021, be opened at 7:11 p.m. Okay, Councilor McKinnon has your hand up. Second.
I'll move it.
Councillor Clark. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that's carried. Okay, so I'll hand it over to Mike for your report.
Okay, this report was prepared in accordance with Section 78 of the Drainage Act for repair and improvement, in this case, mostly improvement to the existing Peters Drain. It is an existing tile drain that is fairly old and undersized as far as today's design standards go. And the group of landowners asked that we upgrade it to today's design standards to provide a better outlet for the watershed. So we're looking at physically replacing the tile, which is destroying the old tile and creating a new tile, basically from the outlet right up to the top end of the drain, and as well replacing a portion of the branch which goes from the main drain southerly towards the 402, straddling lots 4 and 5. There's another small branch that does not really do much and was not requested to be upgraded. It's very short in the middle of lot 4, but it's not being worked on. But the rest of the drain is physically being replaced. There are the upper portion of the branch where we terminate closer to the 402 is being abandoned or being recommended to be abandoned because it no longer serves more than one property. When the drain was originally constructed, the 402 didn't exist, and there were a couple farms on the concession 2 that were affected in tributary. That water's been cut off by the 402, and that water now heads west. So that little bit of the top of the branch is going to be abandoned as part of this as well. We are also recommending that catch basins be installed along the route of the drain at fence lines. There's several property lines where we have the opportunity of collecting surface water and getting it into the new drain. And then there's a little bit of erosion work required on the open channel, which heads along the west side of Kerwood Road. There's a fair amount of fall on it, and it has sufficient depth, but there is a little bit of erosion on the road side of the bank, so we are recommending that some erosion protection be added to the road slope to help it out. Past that, I think I'll stop and open up to questions.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Is there any questions at all? Okay, doesn't look like it. So we have the recommendation there, which is that the engineer's report dated June 14th, 2021 for the repair of the Peters Drain 2021 be considered and adopted as presented by the drainage engineer. Mover and seconder, Deputy Mayor Hendricks, and second by Councilor McKinnon. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that's carried. And then the last motion there is just that the drainage consideration meeting to review the engineer's report for the Peters Drain be closed at 7:14. Okay, Councilor Brody, seconded by Councilor
I'll
Clark.
second that.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
And that's carried. Okay, I think that's it, I think, for Mike DeVos. Is that right? Excellent. Okay, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Good night.
Okay, so moving into item 7, which is our correspondence. Our next regular meeting, and including our planning meeting, is going to be on Tuesday, September 21st. So that's changed from the Monday to the Tuesday, and that's to allow for everyone to be able to get out and vote at the federal election. So just make that note that it's on Tuesday. And then our next meeting after that is Monday, October 4th. So the first item for the correspondence is from the St. Clair Region Conservation Authority. It's their development application process review. Is there any questions or comments on that one? And then item number 2 is from a report from the County of Middlesex, and it's regarding the LDD moths, or as I always call them, the gypsy moths. Is there any questions on that one at all? Okay, so there are no action required. So can we have a motion that council correspondence items CC 1 and 2 be filed and received for information? Okay, Deputy Mayor Hendricks and Councilor Brody, all those in favor?
Aye.
And that's carried. So there isn't any committee minutes at all. So we'll move into staff reports. And the first 2 are from our drainage super, Andrew Neely. And hopefully he's still with us. I see his camera's off. Hey, there he is. Oh, now he's gone.
No, I had to turn the camera off because my internet is so-so right now with the weather. So
Okay.
I am here.
Okay, so I'll hand it over to you for that first one, that McKean Drain 2021.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is, as you said, was the tenders for the McKean Drain. The tenders were closed on August 5th, and it was attended by myself and the treasurer. And so you can see they are as follows. I won't read the whole list, but I will explain the situation here. There was the contract price and the estimate. And you can see that Van Bree Drainage has won this tender. It came in at $49,500, and contract price was $54,290 with the contingency allowance. And with those 2 together, contingency and the contract price is $51,684. As I said, Van Bree Drainage had been recommended for this, and you can see that Spreet's office had recommended this as well, reflecting what I have written.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Is there any questions or comments on this one? Doesn't look like it. So the recommendation there is for the tender for Van Breeze. Mover and seconder. Okay, Deputy Mayor Hendricks and Councilor Brody, all those in favor?
Aye.
And that's carried. And then your second report there is the Morgan Drain.
Thank you. This one was also closed on August 5th, and it was opened by myself and the treasurer. And I would like to explain a little bit about this situation. Spreet's office had issued an addendum, because the work under the 402 was unknown, there was some concern that the contract price would reflect that. And so as a result, the addendum was that if the contract price for the work under the 402 was excessive, that that portion of the contract could be deleted, and the rest of the work on the drain could be carried out. And so that's what was done. That the lowest price for this, you can see that the contract price was 40,800, and the contingency allowance was deleted. But McNally Excavating was the lowest while deleting that contingency under the 402. Once we know the amount of work that needs to be done under the 402, then we can retender it and have a better idea of what the price should be based on the engineer's estimate, and follow through with that portion of work. And as you can see, that the recommendation that council accept the tender from McNally Excavating for the culvert and the ditch work, excluding the work for under the 402, and for the amount of 40,800 plus HST.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Is there any questions at all? Councillor McKinnon?
Through you, Mayor Curtis, to Andrew. Andrew, are the ratepayers on the drain aware of this?
Andrew, were you able to hear that?
I'm not sure if yes. I think the question was, were the ratepayers aware? Not yet. But what we will do is send out a notice explaining the situation, and it was dependent on council's acceptance of that.
Okay, is that good, Councillor McKinnon?
Well, I wondered if we sort of are putting the horse before the cart, if we should go to the ratepayers first and then bring the report back after they've had the information placed before them, given they're going to be paying for it.
If that is the direction from council, then that is what we could do.
Okay, any thoughts on that, Deputy Hendricks?
Yeah, it says that the culverts would be a special assessment. Does that mean in the method you're proposing that would be only the MTO paying for the clean out of the culverts?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, that does mean that the clean out under the highway, the 402, would be assessed to the province. The concern going into this, and the reason for the addendum, was that in order to eliminate some of the unknown, the rest of the work would be inflated cost-wise, and so that's why the addendum was issued. And so that, if that explains the approach.
Okay. Any other questions or comments or thoughts on what Councillor McKinnon's brought forward? Okay, Councillor Deputy Hendricks.
Yeah, I think given the information that the ratepayers aren't going to be paying for that work, I mean, it will need to be done. Otherwise, the effectiveness of the drainage, I imagine, isn't as good. So, but I could see going ahead with the recommendation, and then, you know, if the ratepayers are provided the ratepayers aren't going to get an extra bill later on when their portion of the work is done.
Okay. Any other
If that is a question,
Yeah, go ahead, Andrew.
yeah. So to answer that question, it is unlikely if the work is only under the 402, then that would be assessed to the province specifically.
Okay, Councilor McKinnon, you're on mute.
Through you, Mayor Curtis, to Andrew again. Andrew, you state in the report that McNally Excavating were the low contract. And up above that, though, it shows the ditch and the culvert work that they were 40,800, but the other contractor was 38,700. So was he the low just for that work that we're talking about allowing to be completed?
Councilor McKinnon, I think the 38.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. 30.
Sorry. Go ahead.
I think you were going in the same direction I was. The 38,700 is the estimate.
So just for clarification again, so you're saying that McNally has locked in at 40,800 and that isn't an estimate?
Right. So through you, Mr. Mayor, if you look at the contract price at the top, and I think that's what you're referring to, 38,700. If you go to the far right, it says the estimate, and then you go down from there. The lowest bid, with that in mind, 40,800. You go to the right, that is McNally Excavating, and that is deleting the contingency.
Thank you.
Okay, is there any other questions there before I go to the recommendation or ask for council to make a motion? Okay, so the recommendation that's in front of us is to accept the tender from McNally Excavating for the culvert and ditch work, excluding the work under the 402 highway as per addendum and of the Morgan, yeah, it is Morgan Drain, in the amount of 40,800 plus HST as recommended by Sprates Associates. So that's the recommendation. Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Okay, that's moved by Deputy Mayor Hendricks, seconded by Councillor Brody. Is there any further discussion at all? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and that's carried. Alrighty, so that is the end of our drainage stuff. So Andrew, if you want to stick around, that's great. If not, I understand. So I'll move into the next item, which is 9C, which is the budget to actual, and that's from Johnny, our treasurer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have in front of us the July 2021 budget to actual report. Just so council is aware, the timing, due to the timing of the council meetings, we will likely always be a month behind in these reports due to the review process internally for this. So going to the report, like we've seen in the June budget to actual, there are still a number of outstanding items. So there is a familiar feel to this report as we saw in June. For revenue, we will see the majority in August when final taxes are billed. And for expenses, the majority is made up from public works, which many projects are ongoing during the summer months with the invoices to follow. I have indicated in the budget to actual report something to kind of help council navigate through this. If there are any issues, I've highlighted as the first note under each department that there is issues noted, or there are no issues noted, just to help kind of going through that report. I know there's a lot of information there. That being said, I would be happy to answer any specific questions regarding the budget actual report.
Is there any questions at all?
I just have a comment, like, it looks great and I really appreciate the way it's been laid out. So thank you.
Thanks.
Doesn't look like there's any other questions at all. So you're looking for the motion, where am I here, to receive that as information? Okay, move on seconder for that. Okay, Deputy Mayor Hendricks, seconded by Councillor McKinnon. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that's carried. And then your next report there.
Yep. So this is the waste and recycling collection, the budget overage. So as presented in the June and today's July budget actual report, a budget overage was identified in the total expenditures for waste collection in 2021. The first step that staff completed was a full audit in July with data provided by Blue Water Recycling Association, BRA, to ensure all wheelie bins and wheelie bin sizes were accounted for properly and ensure appropriate cost recovery of the program. There were some issues identified and they were corrected. After the audit was completed, we connected with BRA again to understand some of the reasons for the overage that we've been seeing. What they noticed was a significant increase in the disposal fees compared to the old program. They were indicating that several homeowners, looks like they were burning their waste prior to the wheelie bin program or delivering it directly to the landfill. Now that all residential property owners must participate in this program, it looks like residents are making use of the wheelie bins. This results in increased volume of waste being processed, which was not accounted for in the original projections. This is a good news story as waste is being collected properly, and this also aligns with Council's strategic plan principle for the environment. In addition to that, the budget figure for both revenue and expenditures didn't fully anticipate the cost of the change in the level of service to a weekly pickup. So if you look at the budget actual report for the revenues and expenses, they are both going to be increased as we're collecting more revenue because of the weekly pickup for the extra $50 per bin charge. And on the other side, the expenses are going to increase as well for that weekly pickup. Those two increases net out for the most part. So that's not too bad. So when you're looking at the actual financials in this report, we budgeted a total loss for 2021 of $88,740 when looking at the total bin revenue and all the waste and recycling expenses. So based on the forecast, we're estimating that we're going to arrive at approximately a $98,000 loss. So an additional $9,000 compared to budget. One thing to note, that does include the recycling component. If we were to exclude the recycling part of this program from just this calculation, the wheelie bin program is still underfunded by approximately $8,745. Just something to note, this is something not specific to Adelaide Metcalfe. Other municipalities are also facing similar challenges. As mentioned in the report, staff can present options to council in managing the costs related to this program as part of the upcoming 2022 budget exercise. I'd be happy to take any questions if you have any.
Okay, thank you, Johnny. Is there any questions at all?
I have a question, Mayor Smith.
Yep, Councillor Clark.
Okay. Given your good experience, Johnny, do you ever recall, like in previous positions, seeing any sort of environmental grants encouraging green? Because this is likely, given that you've mentioned people aren't burning this garbage, they're disposing of it properly. So given your experience, have you ever seen any green type grants that we could look into for cost recovery here? Or that's not something that exists?
To be honest, I haven't seen any. That's not saying there aren't any. It is something we can look into and provide that information back, but I'm not familiar with any at the current time.
No, okay, I'm not either, but I just wondered maybe there is such a thing. So, okay, just keep your eyes open maybe for something.
Oh, for sure. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Brody.
Yeah, through you, Curtis, to Johnny.
Yeah.
I think just a comment, like just at budget time, I would like to maybe see a summary of what the other municipalities are charging. Are we lower or are we higher? My gut feeling is we're going to have a loss at all times on this, but I just don't want to be out comparing to the other places. Like, we are charging $50 a wheelie bin, not enough. Then maybe we better look at that.
Yeah, that's a good point. We can definitely present that during budget.
Okay, is there any other questions or comments at all? Just the one comment that I will make, that so looking at the expenses, the disposal, that $30,158. So that amount is going for the actual disposal of the actual garbage. Is that correct? And that's going over to Twin Creeks?
That is correct. It's the disposal. I am not 100% sure where that waste is going, but that is the amount that is increasing due to the additional volume that we're seeing.
So the one thing that just we have to be mindful of as council, and also just to remind the public, is that a number of years ago, just like a handful of years ago, we actually used to have the weekly pickup go into our landfill. So that cost, that line really wasn't there. That line was actually in our landfill budget line of covering up that weekly garbage pickup. So there's additional charge here, but on the flip side is that now the landfill, the school road landfill, the only one we have left in our municipality, the life expectancy is going to be a little longer now because we're not putting the weekly pickup from garbage there. So there's kind of, there is an additional charge, but there's going to be less charge then on the school road landfill, and also we'll be able to use that for a lot longer. So just to keep that in mind. And Coulter's shaking his head, so I think I said everything right. Excellent. Okay, is there any other questions on this report? Doesn't look like it. So we have a motion that the report entitled "The Waste Recycling Collection Budget Overage" be received for information, and further that council direct staff to present options in managing the cost related to this program to the budget working group.
I'll move that.
Moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Brody. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that's carried. And then your next one there, your wheelie bins.
Yeah, so carrying on with the wheelie bins, thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to council. This report in front of us here is really to provide a summary to council and the public regarding the change in the overall level of service, as it may not have been clear to everyone over the past year. In 2020, Adelaide Metcalfe introduced the new wheelie bin program with 2 levels of service. The first being for urban residents, which provided a weekly pickup with a bin charge plus $50 for that weekly pickup. So those bin charges are $50, $90, and $135 for the corresponding bin sizes. For the rural residents, that was the second level of service, and they were offered the bi-weekly pickup with the bin charge only. So shortly after implementing the program, public feedback was received on the program's level of service. In August of 2020, council changed the program from a bi-weekly pickup in the rural areas to weekly. This change resulted in an additional $50 per bin for all rural residents. So all residents in the township would now receive the same level of service after this change. So the bin charge plus $50 for the weekly pickup. So due to the timing of this change, there was not enough notice to communicate this information to all the rural residents, that $50 increase for weekly pickup, as all wheelie bins are charged on the final tax bill. Even though the $50 additional charge for urban residents was communicated, it would not be fair to charge the urban community and not the rural community, even though they're receiving the same level of service. Therefore, council decided that only the wheelie bin charge was to be billed on the final taxes, and the cost of the weekly pickup, the $50 per bin, would be absorbed by the tax levy. So in theory, all properties with wheelie bins benefited from this delay last year. For the 2021 final tax billing, staff followed direction from the February 10th, 2021 council meeting to ensure weekly pickup charges were applied to all those who had wheelie bins. So it is important to note that Adelaide Metcalfe didn't change the rates for the garbage bin itself, as the cost of each bin remained the same at $50, $90, and $135. The increase is solely due to the change in the overall level of service. So yeah, that's pretty much a summary of events there. And I'd be happy to take any questions if anybody has any.
Excellent. And before we go to questions, I just want to be very clear to the public, we're not changing anything. This is just an information report to bring us up to date on where we're at, how much the fees are and that type of thing. We're not changing anything with the weekly pickup. It is staying for good. So any questions at all? Okay, seeing none. So we have the motion then to receive this report for information. Okay, Councillor Brody and Deputy Mayor Hendricks, all those in favor?
Aye.
And that's carried. Okay, that looks like it's the last report from Johnny there. So we'll move into the next one, next report, which is the Ontario Transfer Payment Agreement, and that's from Morgan.
And so thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to council. This is another opportunity that Adelaide Metcalfe administration has found a grant, applied, and were successful. So great news. I know we had another report like this at the last meeting, but this is in line with the province's municipal modernization program. I'm not sure if council will remember, but I think it was March 1st of this year, we did have a modernization update that was presented to council. And at that meeting, we presented a couple options on future funding opportunities, and were directed by council to apply for a second round of intake funds for a review or service delivery review of municipal services. So the last time we went through this program, we really looked at our financial services and came out with, I believe it was about 7 really good recommendations, and one was to continue to chase additional grant opportunities. This application was successful for about $50,000 to continue to look at various municipal services. And the ones we're going to look at this time are within our planning and development portfolios, drainage, and records management. So big 3 municipal service areas for the township. We were successful. I guess I'd open it up to any questions for council at this time, but otherwise I'd recommend that we approve the Ontario Transfer Payment Agreement and have the mayor and the clerk sign it.
Okay, is there any questions at all for Morgan? Other than a big congratulations. Doesn't look like it. Okay, so the recommendation there. So do we have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Clark, you're unmuted.
I'll move that.
Okie dokie.
Sure, I'll move it.
By Councillor McKinnon. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that's carried. Okie dokie. So that is the end of our staff report. So the next section there is our closed session. So we need to have a motion from council that council adjourn to closed session. That makes sense, I guess. Move into closed session at 7:43 pursuant to section 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended to discuss the following matters. And that is under K, position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to negotiation carried or to be carried on or on behalf of the municipality or local board 2001 and it keeps on going. And it's in regards to Highway 81 for the commercial corridor proposed municipal servicing agreement from Strathroy Caradoc. And I have to say, I think I did that better than I'm part of the authority board meetings for paramedic services, and Bill Rayburn, our county CAO, is the chair. And he loves reading through this stuff. So I did just as good a job as he did. So we need a mover and seconder to go into that closed session under section K. Councillor McKinnon, seconded by
I'll move that.
Brody. All those in favor? And that's carried. And before we end the live session, I just want to outline that. So that's the on our agenda there, that's the agenda that we have in there. So we're going to be looking at our minutes from the previous meeting, which is August 9th, and then the Highway 81 servicing agreement, and then we'll adjourn, and then we'll come back for the other business and bylaws, which I'm not sure how long this closed session will take, but I just want to say thank you to our clerk, Mike, for really outlining exactly why we're going to close. I think it's a great idea to be very transparent so everybody can see exactly what we're talking about. So let's end that live stream.